Hey guys, Dr. Mike Wiming here from Income.md. And in this video, we're going to continue our series of side business success. And we're going to talk about idea incubation. So, in the last video, and if you missed any of our videos, check us out on Income.md. We talked about why should you even start a side business, or what are the key factors you need to think of before starting a side business. Now we're going to cover the most important question is, what am I actually going to sell for my side business? And it's great, and I know a lot of folks here are entrepreneurs and want to build a business, something that they create, something they can call their own. But it's often not a loss on what can I actually sell. And it gets so confusing, and it gets so complicated at times that the message really kind of gets muddled. And I think having coached other doctors or healthcare professionals on helping them build their own businesses, I think there's some key questions that you need to ask yourself that can really kind of hone in on the types of ideas and making sure that you have those ideas can actually turn into something that can be profitable to sell. And oftentimes when I do a consulting gig and engagement, there's they've got lots of different ideas, they got lots of thoughts, and they get examples and inspiration from their friends and family. But when it comes down to it, you want to focus on a few key factors to decide on when you're forming that side business. First off, and it kind of seems kind of simple and overstated, but what can I do in my side business to bring more value? Meaning, what can you do that fulfills a problem that helps overcome some type of problem that's occurring in that marketplace in whatever industry that you're in? Um, of course, for most people, when they want to start building a side business, and we went through this last time, was I want to make a lot of money, right? I want to do something that I can provide for my family, and of course, that often goes without saying. But anytime I built a business, it's or in the times where I did it when I call chasing the money, it's usually those businesses usually end up fizzling out, and when I look back, it's often because I was trying to chase the money instead of like, what can I do that can help other people solve their problems? And when you focus it in that way, the money will always follow. The money will always follow when you do that. So really providing value, and I think this quote kind of uh, reinforces that, is that you'll be paid in direct proportion to the value that you create in the marketplace, and that's so true. I think often as doctors, we get into this habit of substituting time for money, and it almost limits us to some effect. So let's say you're a very high paid surgeon, and let's say you're making $500 an hour. Oftentimes, as healthcare professionals, we are limited by how many patients, how many clients that we actually see. So, no matter what we do, if we are not getting other sources of income, the amount of money that we make in our lifetime is based upon how many patients that we see. Our earning potential is limited. And we often do tend to underestimate our own value. And if you want to make more money in that type of business where you're limited by how many patients, just be aware that there's always be a ceiling that you're going to be, never going to be able to reach. When he talks to building a business, is to understand is if when I'm looking at something, a service that I'm doing, I'm always looking at where I'm not the one who is solely responsible for providing that service. And that's where you can start thinking about building businesses, building assets that you can, that allow you to scale and grow. Another aspect of, or another question you can ask yourself in the side business is, what are common problems that you're currently seeing in your current job? Now, I've worked with a lot of different doctors, a lot of different healthcare professionals, medical students, people not in medicine. And when they think about what ideas that they can get into, it's the best ones that I think are going to be most successful are the ones that you are currently seeing right now in perhaps your own job experience. Now, certainly, there's always exceptions to the rule. If you have, let's say, you want to build a business, and you want to build a business that helps dog owners. If you aren't a dog owner yourself, you are going to be very limited, in my opinion, on how successful that is because you don't intrinsically know about what the problems that these dog owners are currently having. So when a doctor is working on starting their own business, they're going to gravitate to things that they're actually seeing. You're going to understand the problems, and those are usually the building blocks to a successful business. So, I'll give you an example of myself. When I wanted to create a product that provided a solution, I looked at a problem that was going on in my own practice when I was working as a primary care physician. I noticed that patients were having trouble with the cost of medicine, something that's not unusual back then and these days, right? And they couldn't afford it. And over time, I developed some tips and strategies that could help really lower that healthcare bill. So one of the solutions I had is I wrote a guide that compared um, taught them how to compare shop medicines and how to buy inexpensive medications, whether that be whether it be generic medications, whether that be medicines from Canadian pharmacies, different ways that you can reduce your own health costs, understanding things like different health accounts, and et cetera. Because that was a problem that I saw on a daily basis, and over time I learned some strategies that could help other people, and that's what I focused on. Right, I was learning, talking about building value and helping those folks. Another example that a colleague I know did. He saw that there were a lot of poorly trained CNAs that were working at different facilities, nursing facilities, etc. So he started a CNA school. He saw a gap in the marketplace and he wanted to fulfill it. Another one, a doctor that I interviewed, and he wanted to add occupational medicine to his family practice, but didn't find that there was a lot of information that was very scattered, and not a lot of people that were readily available to give up this type of information. So he learned it the hard way, and then felt that, hey, this is knowledge that I have that I could share with other providers. So he now provides consulting to other doctors, teaching them that exact area, how to build occupational medicine to his practice. Again, finding a problem and then providing a solution, providing value to that industry. Another question you want to ask yourself is, what is your superpower? What is that one thing that oftentimes you are really good at, that you know like the back of your hand, that you are a Superman, a Wonder Woman, and for others that it may be very, very difficult to do, but for you, it's like a piece of cake. Those are the types of areas where people will pay you money for that. Those are things that, for the most part, if it's something that it provides value for other people, that is your superpower. That can be the building block for a business. Again, it has to be something that can provide value. For example, one of my superpowers is I know a lot about 80s music trivia, but I don't consider that something that is providing people value. However, if you're someone who knows a lot about medical billing, and when, let's say, your manager comes up to you and asking you about the different ICD-10 codes, and you can just rattle that off and know how to reduce that and solve those kind of problems, that could be something that could provide a building block for a business. Now, when you're going to go into a business, you want to have an idea is like what's going on in that industry. You want to know who are the players, who are the ones that are the big kahunas in that industry. If you're going to go into for example, if you're going to go into the computer business, you need to know a lot about Dell. You need to know a lot about Acer. You need to know a lot about the different types of computer manufacturers in that business. That is about doing your competitive analysis. So when you're really trying to, let's say you've got your idea on what type of business you want to do. You want to see who are the main players, who are the main competitors, and try to see is like what are they missing, what are they not doing that others can take advantage of. Are there gaps in their market? Are there demands in the market that aren't being fulfilled? And it just because a industry has a lot of big players in that market, that shouldn't shy away from actually going into that market. I see that all the time where I see somebody going into a specific industry, and the big companies uh, think they have 75% of that market, but they may be missing, let's say, an aspect of customer support that you, as maybe a mom and pop shop or mom and pop business, can provide. So those are the kinds of things where you want to identify is where you can kind of find your own uh, little space, and there's nothing wrong about kind of being in a big fish in a small area or a small pond, right? As the saying goes. And then another key aspect that I think really turned me on, especially in terms of a business that is online, is can this business be scalable and repeatable? As I said earlier in um, this training, is I like to go into businesses where I am not the centerpiece of that uh, business. So, for example, if you're a doctor in a solo practice, what is the one person in that practice who is responsible for the amount of revenue that that business makes? Of course, it's going to be that doctor. Now, does that mean is that something that can be scalable? Pretty difficult. Again, you're limited by how many patients you see. Now, another situation, let's say that same doctor, instead of just is a solo practice, he decides to um, build similar practices in different communities in his region. And then instead of just him is responsible, he is the owner, and now he hires doctors to run those different practices. Well, that's a different story, right? That's what the E-Myth calls working on your business instead of in your business. And that as an entrepreneur is really understanding that scalability, and is that something that is repeatable. So again, one of the things that I like when you're looking at a side business, and a kind of a key component is to utilize this technology that is out there, the internet, right? The internet allows you to communicate with people from around the world. It allows you to build a business on the side, having your website as your 24-hour salesman, a brochure, and allows you to actually build. So if you want to build a small side business, you already got that internet, and allows you to work wherever you want. And that's why I think side businesses who use online, it really kind of caters to them. It allows you to be strategic. It allows you to go from a local business, starting something, and then turning it into being global business out there. So one thing that can be very beneficial to you when you're deciding on really honing in that specific side business is to do what's called a SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis has been around since the 60s. It's a business tool that when a specific business is looking in to go into a certain market, they use a SWOT tool. You may have already used this in your own practice. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And the strengths being, when you're going to look into a business, what are some things that you can provide in that business? You're going to provide knowledge. You can provide financial situation in terms of, maybe you've got more revenue than someone else who is doing this. You may have contacts in that business. You may have the experience of going into that specific market. You also then want to look at weaknesses. Let's say you may not have those same relationships. And again, these don't mean, and again, for each business, there can be different strengths, there can be different weaknesses. I'm just trying to give you an example. You may want to start a business that you want to take globally, but right now you're kind of living locally. That's what I'm talking about. You may not be familiar with all the technology, or maybe you're going into an industry where there's a lot of technology. You need to look into that. You also want to look at to see what are the different opportunities. Is this something that's growing, or is this something that a market where it's kind of trending or leveling off? Are there are you just being a copycat because you saw someone other type of business that was doing the same thing, and you just kind of want to follow on your own? Not that there's anything wrong with it, but are you truly seeing that there are gaps in that industry that you can help fulfill? And then just understanding what's coming up there. Is there something big that's coming up that could interfere in that business that can be limited? Are there going to be large competitors? Are you going in an area where there might be a lot of government regulation? Is this an area where it's only affected by seasons? Are you going to be affected by the different workforces? Are you going to go into technology that might be obsolete coming soon? Lots of different factors that you need to be aware of. Um, so I want to leave you, the rest of the video is to give you 3 ideas, um, areas areas that you can go into as a healthcare professional that I identified, that if you're going to do a side business and you're going to do it online, I think it really caters to this type of business. So I'm not going to be talking about brick and mortar businesses or physical businesses right now. I'm talking about a true side business, someone who's working full time that they can do on their own. First one that I love is consulting. I talk about consulting on my main website. We have a course on consulting, so too much that I can give you in just a moment. So one of the areas where I got started as a doctor, and now as I left a doctor, I was involved in different types of businesses. I had a software company that I later sold. But as I was building that company, one way that I've continued to build in revenue is to do consulting. And this is just one of a picture of a conference that I do with IncomeD. We do these conferences with other doctors talking about different types of entrepreneurial activities. What are the pros and cons of that? And the reason why I share that with you is that something that I enjoy doing, and it fulfills a lot of the different criteria that we just discussed earlier. With consulting, it's great. You can do it on the side. You can do it when you're going to have that website up, still making prospects and leads come to your website. It's not dependent on the website. Doesn't go for coffee breaks or doesn't ask for overtime. It makes it very, very flexible. And again, that's your brochure. But as consulting, you can do whatever you want. You can do it. You can work whenever you want. You can work from home. You can work on a laptop. You can work on a plane. And there's so many different aspects of consulting. You can check our website where we discuss a few areas, but some areas where I've seen my own students do this and my colleagues working at startups in terms of healthcare information, law firms, file review companies, drug companies, government agencies. I work with a lot of different practices. What kind of information, knowledge that you can share with other people, that people will pay you for that information. Those are having a consulting business, I think, is the 100% typical type of business. Second area that you can go into are niche products. These are products, physical products that you can sell. Give you an example of some areas where I've seen, and this one, I just want you to kind of just open up your mind on possibilities. Right now, it is easier than ever to start an online business. And the great thing about the internet, it's now open to just a wide variety of different markets that you really didn't have before. So, for example, there's a website out there started by a couple parents. They generate $50,000 a month on average selling doll clothing patterns. What is a doll clothing pattern? These are clothes that they make for dolls, and they have blueprints of how to actually make those clothes. I didn't know it until I actually read about it. And again, this is a $50,000 a month business. They found something that was a gap that was in that market, and then they then fulfill this. A good friend of mine, a couple of friends of mine, partnered with a doctor, and they together co-found a $10 million year company that sells nutritional supplements. The company's called Real Dose. They provide everything that they sell is primarily sold online. They're a $10 million company providing information that the doctor and knowledge that he knows in creating these supplements that they do sell online. A good buddy of mine, he has, I think he's been in business now for 15, 16 years. He was a dance instructor and now teaches salsa dancing and sells videos, streamable videos, DVDs, on teaching other people how to salsa dance from home. That's his entire business. And great dancer. And another one, he sells back braces and um, other products that help people with back pain, which is a billion-dollar practice using tools such as Shopify, which is a shopping cart application. Basically, it's dropped it easy to create these sites, and then of course using Amazon, which is another big site that the everyman can get into and actually sell his products and get in front of potentially millions of people using that way. Great example of side businesses that are doing rather well. And then the third way that I could see healthcare professionals get into, one of my favorites, is information products. It's kind of a more passive form of the consulting type, but again, you're just sharing knowledge, but now you're getting, instead of doing one-on-one consulting, time for money type of business, to more of a passive income. So selling different types of products, information, CDs and DVDs, home study courses, courses that teach different aspects. Now we're getting online courses. I think most people are now very comfortable buying things online where they're getting streamed, right? We all know about Netflix and entertainment that way. Well, there's a company called Udemy, which provides online courses that anybody can start their own course, and then they provide that course one time, and they get paid on a regular basis. And then there's live training. We do different types of workshops that we've all done, right? We've all been to CME different courses. Well, you can do the same thing online and as well as offline. So again, examples of different information type products. So really quickly, those are the three aspects that I think you can get into as a side business. So I hope you liked this video. I've been getting some great feedback. If you like it, we're going to continue the series. So get any questions, to email me at info@income.md. And if you want your free copy of a information on a course that we're developing, it's called How to Start a Online Health Business, go check out our website at income.md, and you can go ahead and you can download that information. So this is Dr. Mike. Thanks for watching, and I hope to talk to you soon.